So this conflict. So that's happening in Kali Yuga. So basically, that's why it is mentioned that this battle is actually selected in the this discussion of Bhagavad Gita is Krishna chosen in the mid of the battlefield because of everybody is in the battlefield. So also Krishna is revealing that what is this material and what is spiritual, what is ultimate, what is temporary, what a person is supposed to do. So this is a wonderful chapter, and it's also this chapter is mentioned as the contents of the Gita summarized. So let's go and select what the main points of this chapter. So I mentioned that material versus spiritual. So because of uh, Arjuna is on the material platform, and everything Arjuna is putting forth arguments and the concerns and the various his points are based on the material understanding. So we are also in that situation. We are all on the material understanding and the material situations. So, but Krishna, the Supreme Lord, revealing that no, there is another nature that's called spiritual nature. So that spiritual nature, Krishna is completely, explaining to Arjuna, that we can see that throughout the Bhagavad Gita, and especially this is condensed, summary of that in the second chapter. So it's mentioned that in the Bhagavad Gita 7.6, it's mentioned that Edat Yonini Bhudani Sarvanidi Ubadharya Aham Krishnasya Jagada Prabhava Pralayastada. What does that mean? Say all created beings have their in origin two natures, material and spiritual. So please note that point. All created beings have their origin in two natures, the material and spiritual. Know for certain that Lord is both the origin and the solution. So the Supreme Lord has a creation. One is material and another is spiritual. So Lord is actually the proprietor and the source of both the origin and the dissolution. So then it's mentioned that we need to further we can see what is material then, right? So we know that there are two natures of all the creations of the Lord. There are two natures. So what is material is anything which is temporary, subject to change, which has a beginning and end, transform from one to another. It creates a product, relative, can cut into pieces, it can dissolve, burn, inferior in nature and dull, unconscious and composed of inert matter, grows and settle. See that there are so many ways we can define a material nature or material. What is material? It's very important to understand what is material. So it's anything which is temporary, right? It won't sustain for long. It changes. It is subject to change, and it has a beginning, right? It has end and transform one to another, right? It goes from one form to another that we can see in this world, and it creates some byproduct. It's relative. I mean, I can make a form, depends on the structure of it. So it can burn, it can dissolve, it can change to any form, any way we want. And we call it as gross, that's visible, and like that. So we know that what is now material, it's what there is a physical form for it, and it's subject to change in a lot of things. So then let's come to the point, what is spiritual then, right? So spiritual is entirely opposite of that material, right? Entirely opposite of that material. So first of all, the material is perishable. It destroys, it goes, it's from goes, it goes from one to another, or it disappears, or it's perish. But spiritual is imperishable, and it is full of conscious. Please note that the point. The spiritual is, or spirit is full of conscious. That's why we call it as spiritual. Then it's unborn. This nature of the spirit or spiritual nature is unborn. It doesn't take birth. It's ever existing. As it says that it's ever existing. It is eternal. It's ever existing and eternal. It's always there. Subject to no change. It doesn't change from one to another or one place to another. It doesn't change. It has no beginning. The spiritual nature has no beginning. It has no end. It cannot cut into pieces, cannot burn, full of knowledge, bliss. It's absolute in nature, right? It's not subject to decay or anything. It's absolute. There is nothing to add or nothing to subtract into it. It is ever existing. It has full of potency. But on the other hand, the material nature is it is inert. But the spiritual or spiritual nature is, it has full of potency. So these are the difference between the material and spiritual. So we have these two natures. We can see that these two natures. So this is the truth and this is the fact. So then further, if we go, then let's see that. Then Krishna further explains that, what is specifically that what we say when we say it's a material, what is specific to that? So Krishna says that Bhumir Apo Nalo Vayu Kam Mano Buddhirevacha Ahangaram Idiyame Bhinna Prakriti Rashtadaha. It's a separate, Bhinna. Bhinna means separate. So we can easily understand that there is a spirit that is eternal. From the spirit or that eternal nature or that superior energy or eternal energy, from that energy there is another energy that is separate from that spirit, that is known as this material. Bhinna prakriti rashtadaha. This prakriti is known as the material prakriti or material energy or material nature. So that's earth, bhumir, apo, nalo, vayu. That means earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and false ego. Please note that, right? So these are all the separate energy of Krishna. Bhinna prakriti ashtadaga. These eight elements constitute my separated material energy. So these are the separate energy of Krishna, not the real, superior energy or Antaranga Shakti, we call it as. Then there are 10 senses, right? We know that 5 working senses or the working, hands, legs, stomach, rectum, and genitals, and 5 for acquiring knowledge, eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and skin. Then 5 sense objects, form, taste, smell, sound, and touch, and time. These 24 elements constitute the field of activity for the living entities. So the spirit or the spiritual energy or the spirit soul acting on these various elements. When it's all comes together, we call it as a material body. But within that material body, there is a spirit soul. So this is the first portion of Krishna is telling to Arjuna. Arjuna, you need to understand this nature, this prakriti. Krishna says material nature is endowed with the 3 qualities. There is also this material nature now has 3 qualities. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it is passion, sometimes it's ignorance, sattva guna, rajo guna, tamo guna. Then these 3 qualities combined and permutate, they create many varieties of qualities, right? The combination of that we can see that this world sometimes good, sometimes bad. Some places are good, some places are bad in this material world. Some are filthy, some are good. It's all out there. So why? Because of this energy, this material energy consists of 3 qualities again. So we can understand that. Then there is, Krishna says also in the beginning, then happiness and distress all arises from this sense perception are temporary. That means what we get, the happiness and the distress and all is temporary. That means it's all material. There is no permanent source or permanent nature for it. This happiness and distress. It is a temporary nature, or it's a flickering nature. So that's also material. It's not permanent that we say happiness or we say in this world. Then we can see that there is a, when you say that the state of matter or the matter we have, we can define this matter in various ways. Sometimes it's in liquid form, sometimes it's in a solid form, sometimes it's in a gas form. And then scientists come up with another way of the quantum state of matter. That means when you pick a light is considered as known as the photons, or that light particles are in the form of quantum. There is a quantum theory. They say this matter, it's not solid, it's not liquid, it's not gas. It says that it's in a quantum. There's another state of this matter, right? So then another state they come up with is actually known as plasma. Say like a fire. They say it's not gas, it's not quantum, it's an energy. The state of an energy is another form of an energy in a state, in a way that we can understand what, when somebody asks that what is fire, we can say that it's an energy. So that energy, they call it in a state called plasma, right? That's the another way of we can see the what is matter. Then there is the state of matter, they say unusual. There are many other unusual things out there. Then there is kind of magnetism, right? It is, what is that? So it has a different state. It all has a different state, like in every atom has their own state, right? You know that 105 elements, it has its own state of each atom, their own, the nature and the quality, all is there. So likes that, the spirit also has a nature, right? Spirit also has a nature. I can show that. I just put it here in the way how it is actually captured in the a camera is called KIRLEAN camera. In Germany, they found out a camera called KIRLEAN camera. They found out that the spirit also has a nature. It's actually, they can capture some image of it. It's not exact image of it, but some image of it. The reason I put it, because the spirit also has a nature. It's not that just a myth, or it's that somebody says that, okay, when the body finishes, everything finishes. No, it's not that. The spirit also has a nature. That's why Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that the same, there are two natures. The Krishna's create all the creations of the Krishna has two nature, right? So that's where we can come to the point where what is spiritual, then what is the spiritual nature. So spiritual nature, as mentioned, that which is eternal. That's Krishna is telling to Arjuna that, oh, Arjuna, you are eternal. You are not this body. You are not this body. You are eternal. So there is an eternal truth. So Krishna is revealing that entire the science of the spirit, the science of spirit to Arjuna. That's where we can see the first portion of the second chapter. So here Krishna is saying that spirit is eternal, part and parcel of the Supreme Spirit. That is, Krishna says in the 15th chapter, confirming that Mamayivamsho Jiva Loge Jiva Buddha Sanatana, all living entities are my eternal part and parcel. But this soul is entrapped in the clutches of mind and the senses and suffering in this world. That's what it is. It's all suffering because of this material is entrapped into this material nature. When the spirit soul entrapped into the clutches of this material nature, that is, the mind is also the nature, its nature is material, the senses nature is material. And with this soul is suffering in this world. So Krishna is revealing that to Arjuna. So Krishna is saying that to Arjuna, for the soul, there is no birth, no death at all, anytime. Na jayade mriyade va kadachin nayam bhutva bhavitva na bhuyaha ajo nityam shashvatam puranam na hanyade hanyamane sharire. The soul, there is neither birth nor death at any time. He has not come into being, does not come into being, and will not come into being. He is unborn, he is eternal, ever existing, and primeval. He is not slain when the body is slain. So Krishna is completely giving that the understanding of spirit soul to Arjuna. Arjuna, you are not this body. All these impurities are actually came upon from your material, understanding or material nature. But that is not the permanent. That's not everything. But beyond that, there is a spiritual nature. Oh, Arjuna, you are eternal. You are not this body, but you are a spirit soul. That's your eternal nature. That's Krishna is saying here. And further, Krishna telling to Arjuna that, oh Arjuna, soul can never cut into pieces. Nainam chindanti shastrani. You cannot cut into pieces with any weapon, nor burned by, nor moistened by water, nor withered by the wind. That means anything in this material world cannot affect or touch or can destroy the soul. Nothing in this material world can destroy the soul, or soul cannot be destroyed. Then it says that the individual soul is unbreakable and insoluble and can be neither burned nor dried, is everlasting, present everywhere, unchangeable, immovable, and eternally the same. So Krishna is further giving the more details of the spirit soul. And it is further mentioned that the soul passes from the one body to another, right? Dehino asmin yada dehe kaumaram yavanam jara tada dehantara praptur dhiras tatrana mukhyadi. Krishna is telling to Arjuna, Arjuna, the soul, the embodied soul, passing from boyhood to youthhood, youthhood to old age. Similarly, the soul passes from one body to another. So the uh, so the person, a sober person, is not bewildered by such a change. So change is happening. What is that change? From one body to another. That means the body is material, that is temporary, that is subject to change. But the spirit soul, eternal, never dies, but it's actually going from one body to another. And I remember that I think I mentioned this one uh, before in the class. When I was a child, I saw that we were around maybe like fourth grade or fifth grade. We were there in the evening, with my mother asked us to go and chant the holy name. Like every evening we do that with my sister and brothers. And we were sitting there and doing this. My father came from the outside and he sat on the bench there and the chair, and he was drinking some coffee or tea or something like that time. And then he immediately fall unconscious. He immediately became unconscious. He fall down from his chair and he started to speak a language which he doesn't know at all. It's a very fluent language. It's a very, very, what we can say that, like as a person is speaking very fluently without any, obstructions. It's very fluently speaking like anything, like as if like somebody is complaining or somebody is saying, talking like. It was a Tamil language, but my father never knew that language. So he started to speak very fluently. So my mother came to know that what is actually happened, what is actually happening. So we go to temple and we get this abhishek water. Always we keep the abhishek water at the home. My mother got this abhishek water and just sprinkle on my father's body. Immediately he just stopped talking. Immediately he stopped talking. And this I have seen him with my eyes. Immediately he stopped talking, and he slowly came out to the his conscious. He just got up and he just sat and then asked, "What happened? What happened?" So I didn't know much about that time what was exactly happened, but my mother said that it was an evil spirit or some spirit came to his body and was started to speak on that language. It's very surprising, very kind of, as a person, if you look at it, it's very surprising. And how is possible? How is it possible that even medical science cannot explain it? They may say that some kind of diseases of the mental diseases or something like that. So, but in our scripture, in very, very earlier, very old, that our scripture mentioned that this is this is possible because of when the spirit is out there, and that spirit is not received in another body. So spirit soul is passing from one body to another, but that spirit soul doesn't get a body. And then what happens? It wanders in this world and look for the time that they can enter into another's body. So then it's actually suppressed. It affects our mind, it affects our consciousness, and it affects, and then it stay for maybe sometimes. That's why the person is getting unconscious from his original consciousness. And then this spirit, those who came from outside, get into the body and then start to act, active, start to become active and start to do anything they want. So it's called a haunted, this called haunting, right? We heard that many times. So it is there, it's a fact that a person is passing, or the soul passing from one body and never, or didn't get a body to, or didn't leave this, this planet, and then in the journey of that to take another birth. And that's called, we do the Sraddha ceremony for all these things, because of we are giving this all the rituals so that they do get an appropriate body in his next life. So these are the procedures and the processes. Sometimes what happens, this all never happens. There is not even a single chance this spirit soul is not able to hear anything spiritual, that because of when that spiritual process happens, some kind of mantras or some kind of spiritual mercy from the other devotees, or some listening of Bhagavad, or listening of mantra or holy name, what happens? Because of that unfortunate, because of that misfortune, this soul doesn't get, doesn't move, and it wanders in this in surroundings, and then try to look for a opportunity to get into the another's body, as it's there. So it's a fact. So in when we do the yatra, when we do the Radha, after the Radha, what happens? We pour the water on the wheels of the Jagannath cart, or Jagannath wheels. The reason for putting that, because it's mentioned that when anything is there, any spiritual activities are there, these souls, wanders, and they're looking for an opportunity, that they're very eager. They're looking for an opportunity wherever that they are able to hear the holy name or any spiritual activities. They would all come there. They would all come there. And then, by the mercy of the devotees, or some way or other, if they are able to hear, because of their subtle body still works, their mind is still active, their consciousness is still active, but they don't have a body, but they want this through. Right? Subtle body is always there. Mind, intelligence, and ego always there with the soul. So then it's actually goes like that. And then when they have an opportunity, they're actually get into the another's body. And that's why, after the Radha and all, we put water on the wheels of the Jagannath. And the reason why we blow the conch? We blow the conch because of, if there is any evil spirit, there is good spirit and bad spirit. So when we blow the conch with that vibration and all this to draw away, to send away this all the evil spirit, that's the reason we are blowing the conch in any auspicious activities. Before any auspicious activities, we blow the conch so that the evil spirit won't come into the and create any kind of problems. So these are all kind of signs. The reason I mentioned that, because of the spirit soul is a fact, it is there. So as Krishna telling to Arjuna that spirit soul passes from one body to another body at the time of death. And then, as I mentioned, that there are so many out of body experiences, and we know that the Srila Prabhupada mentioned a story of a Shanti Devi in Delhi, that Shanti Devi at the age of 3, and she was started to mention her past life experience to her parents, and they didn't believe initially, but later when she was keep continuing this one, her past life experience, she was lived in a village, and she was mentioning everything and everything to to his parents, and they finally reached to that place, and they all found out whatever she said was correct. And I was also reading a news in Azerbaijan, and where there was a one person killed another person, and he killed him and put it and buried under the earth, very, and put that all the weapon he used to kill that person. And that person took a birth in another village, and but he remembered his past life, and he told that I've been killed by this person, and now nobody caught that person, and he was free, and nobody knew this was happened. So he told that I've been killed by this person, and he's still there. And he showed his actually where he was buried. And then they came up, and these people came and dig that burial place, and then took out that the weapon he used to kill that person, and then he agreed and he confessed that he killed that person when he's so that person is took birth into this life. So there are so many examples out there. I think in the Radheshyam Prabhu from the Pune, he actually wrote a book about these cases of there are scientists who are studying this, this life, the soul passing from the body to another, and how and reincarnation, and the experience of the past life experience. There are 3,000 cases. He was actually kind of scientists were kind of there are so many in the internet. It is out there, so many out there. And also further it is into the book Radheshyam Prabhuji was mentioning about that is the how the entire body works, how this our material body works are actually. I mean, they put an experiment on this. Everybody says that the brain, because of the brain has a signal, when you get the signal, all the body functions and all those things. So they exactly made that kind of they got the brain, everything is there, and by some electric circuit, and they made that arrangement to pass some electric signals to the brain, or some kind of signals to the brain, and then that way. And they were trying to prove that, they're trying to show that yes, unless there is an external external what is called somewhere you are actually activate some way or other from the external, there is an external energy or some way or other, that external energy to activate or signals that the brain does not function. And they did that experiment, that brain was there, everything was there, and nothing was happening. His hands were there, everything, nothing was moving in the state of that unconscious state. But when they pass a little signal through that an electric circuit, and all on a sudden that started to work. So their conclusion is that when we the soul is there in our body, the soul gives all the signals, all this energy, everything to the brain, the heart, and all the material, all the organs, the liver and everything, so this functions accordingly. Then there is a settle, that's very settle, and that we can say that that's in the settle form, and that the mind and the intelligence is all out there, so that we can see that it's all out there. So also the soul, which as we know that according to the Garuda Purana, a person just passes, the soul just leaves the body, but soul does not leave immediately. It stays there. It's as mentioned that the soul will be surrounded at the body for 24 hours. That's why it is mentioned that we should immediately cremate the dead body the 24 hours because of, and then if we do that, the soul will get that the rituals and the devotional activities or the holy name chanting or the opportunity to hear the Srimad Bhagavatam. And that this is the reason that, we all, our culture, our tradition does that, when a person dies, as soon as we hear that we put the light and we, chant the holy name and everybody put there. The reason for that, this is the last opportunity. This is the last chance that soul can actually get something from the from the holy name and from the spiritual nature. And then it goes on like that. So it's mentioned that then only soul actually then goes a little further, and then 1 to 3 days somewhere nearby the water or somewhere, then 3 to 9 days, it is still will be there. And that's why then from that ninth or the 10th day, then soul actually goes with the direction of the wind, or this is a process that it's mentioned. That's why many times we do this ceremony of 10th day ceremony or 13th day or 16th day ceremony, because of this is the time that actually even the last as an opportunity that somehow or other the soul can get liberated, even just by the activities of the children or their relatives, that when they do some kind of sraddha means nothing but offering the water and the food to this soul, departed soul, and that way the prasadam which is they get, and they get the chance to get a next body in the next life. So it goes on like that, and as time is approaching, and let me yeah, so we can see that the spirit soul, and Krishna says that pervaded into the entire body. That spirit soul gives everything, the mind, intelligence, the remembrance, the forgetfulness, the knowledge, everything comes from the spirit soul, which is eternal. That's what is Krishna is telling to Arjuna, that the spirit soul is eternal. That's the nature of it, and everybody is like that, and all the living entities and all the life forms in this world has this spirit soul. So then we can come to the conclusion, okay, how can one can come out from the material nature to spiritual? Yes. So we in Srila Prabhupada always give this example. When a raw iron, we put it into the fire, like like a fire which is very hot. So if we keep that iron for some time into this fire, so slowly that iron get red, and it's becoming more hot and hot. It's become red, and then when you take out that, and it's exactly matches with the color of the fire, right? We all experience that. If you put that iron rod, if you put it in the fire, after some time, this iron rod will become the similar nature to the fire. So that means it will become the fire, and this touches with something, it can burn, it can, catch the fire. So that is the nature of it. So we are the material or the soul. So how we can come everything from this material to spiritual, in the sense that the more the constant the association with the spiritual nature, then we also can become completely spiritual from our material temporary situation to the eternal, permanent, constant, and complete and absolute spiritual form. Krishna is telling this way to Arjuna, that we all should come out of it, and then Krishna is giving some tools for that, right? So these are the tools, so these are the elements which makes one person to become material, as well as to transform, or using these tools one can become either material or it can become spiritual. So as is mentioned, that like an iron rod, if you put it into the fire, it can become the fire. Exactly like that, if we utilize our gross body for the spiritual activities, or the our consciousness utilize our for the spiritual activities or the devotional activities, we call it as devotional service, then we go further and says that it's a loving devotional service. It's all spiritual, right? It's not material, because of it is the spiritual in nature, because of the any activities which you perform as eternal in nature, that is completely spiritual. So we can utilize our gross body, our senses, mind, intelligence, consciousness, knowledge, and we can completely become pure, and that's the soul, right? Soul is the nature is spirit. The soul is known as spirit or Atma, right? Krishna is known as Paramatma, and the Jivatma. So soul is Atma in that case. So all these tools we can utilize to completely transform from our material nature to spiritual nature. That's the point it wanted to mention. So Krishna mentioned that, yes, with this, when we utilize this tool in an appropriate way, right, appropriate way, then we can actually situate in a very spiritual platform or transcendental platform. So further, Krishna go further and says we can all situate in transcendental platform. So Krishna says that, O Partha, when a man gives up all varieties of desire for sense gratification, see that one, we can use that tool, that our senses, and if it completely gives up, that means utilize that for the right purpose, right? That's called yukta vairagya muchade, or it's called appropriately utilize, appropriately utilizing, utilization, utility is the principle. So utility means how we utilize our all activities, all our senses, mind and all, is the principle. right? Utility is the principle. When we utilize this, the mind and the senses and the intelligence for the right, for the spiritual, that is eternal. As I mentioned, that the reason I mentioned that all which is eternal means that is the only permanent. Everything else is temporary, right? Only that which we can attain, anything in this world is that permanent nature. That's why we are here in this material world. So Krishna is telling to Arjuna that yes, there is a permanent situation. That's permanent situation is known as spiritual nature. Everybody should attain that spiritual nature. Then he does not want to go through this all these sufferings and distress and the miseries and problems, birth, death, old age, diseases, body from one body to another, and suffering in this world with the dualities and all those things can completely terminate. That one who comes out from this temporary material nature to the spiritual nature, and Krishna is giving the the way that how one can actually come out of it from the material contamination. So Arjuna was in the material contamination. Now Krishna is revealing that the transcendental superior truth to Arjuna, so that Arjuna can come out from it and he can completely situate what is right and what is wrong. So here Krishna is saying that pure transcendental consciousness. So, what is the way Krishna is telling? All give up of all varieties of desire for sense gratification, which arises from the mental concoction. This is all the mind and the sense is all material, right? So, all these are actually is material. So, it doesn't yield any permanent result, but it gives me some temporary results for that. Then Krishna further says that one should not disturb by mind, even threefold miseries. There are so many miseries, but this by this understanding, then one can actually control the mind from this going from here and there, right? So Krishna is further telling that control your mind, Arjuna. That's called steady mind, right? One who controls from the miseries and the happiness and the distress, and don't put our mind in, to entrap with these dualities of this world. Then one who controls his mind is known as steady mind, and earlier it is the steady consciousness transcendentally situated. So then we can control by controlling our mind, we can transcendently situate. Then Krishna says that neither praising nor despising or firmly fixed and unaffected by whatever the good or bad and appreciation or depreciation or recognition or whatever it's happened here in this everything. Remember that this all comes out from the dualities, that we are all prone to the dualities of this material world, good and bad, right and wrong. We are prone to that. We are entangled with it. But there is a beyond that. There is a all this from the dualities of this. There is a beyond. That's why we transcend all this. How we can transcend, that means how we can situate in the spiritual nature, is fixing also our perfect knowledge. So we can see that there are lots of knowledge out there, but then how do we decide that which one is a perfect knowledge? So, but when we experience, when we feel, when we understand, when we apply that in our life, that gives permanent and eternal happiness and the bliss and the knowledge. That is the perfect knowledge. That is the spiritual knowledge. So one who acquire and attain the spiritual knowledge can situate in that transcendental plane or transcendental spiritual plane. Then Krishna further says, one who is able to withdraw his senses from the objects. So mind, senses, and intelligence all should utilize so that we can come to that transcendental plane, or is known as perfect consciousness. Then Krishna says that his senses, keeping them under full control, and fixes his conscience upon me, known as man of steady intelligence, sthira buddhi. So that's the final. That instead of going here, there's so many things we can fix our mind, our senses, intelligence, and everything. But one who fixes his mind upon the Supreme Lord, he is the source of everything. So I mentioned that the source, the Krishna is the source of origin and the destination. Krishna is the cause of everything. He is the Supreme Spirit. All the Spirit, as we are all the spirits, come from that Supreme Spirit, that's Krishna. So then we can completely situate in that transcendental situation, transcendental plane. So it says that in such a state, one should perform his duty, understanding he is not subject to enjoy the fruit of his work and the fruit of the work should sacrifice unto the Supreme. So we should engage our body, mind, senses, intelligence, all for the service of the Supreme Lord, because our nature is spiritual. Our nature is with that Supreme. Our nature is with that Supreme Spirit or Paramatma, or that the Supreme Lord. So we should all work towards that, to work for the Supreme. That is also in the second chapter mentioned about the Karma Yoga, right? It's mentioned there in this chapter. Then, the ultimate, Krishna is saying that the last verse of the second chapter, that surrender and self-realization. Surrender and self-realization. So what is the surrender means? Surrender means all our bodily, mental, and sensual activities, and our, intelligent, or whatever we say in this material, right? As I mentioned, that what is material, all dovetail to come to all dovetail to the service of Krishna. Like Karma Yoga is taking into the next chapter is Karma Yoga, is Krishna is mentioning that how we should perform our activities. So when we perform our activities in such a way that, utilizing our senses, mind, and intelligence, our body for the service of the Lord, is known as surrender. And then what is self-realization? Understanding that we are eternally, we have eternal relationship with the Supreme, and we are eternally part of that Supreme. Our nature is eternally with that Supreme. Then that is called self-realization. So the basic point from your summary of this chapter is nothing but is actually to, Krishna is telling to Arjuna that understand this, you have an eternal nature. Your duty is to surrender unto me with your mind, intelligence, and body, and subtle body and gross body, everything, and understanding, whatever the understanding, that should be perfect in knowledge, and that should the absolute knowledge should understand, and then you should surrender unto me. That's what is the summary of this chapter. So summary is, material versus spiritual, and all our nature, eternal nature, is spiritual. Temporarily we are here in this material world and suffering in this material world, but we can come out from that. The cloud, this not material is known as a cloud. From that cloud to the clear, our spiritual nature. That's the summary that which Krishna is addressing to Arjuna. Thank you so much for listening. I just little went over a couple of minutes. Thank you so much. Um, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much. Okay, just let me get back to my. Yeah. Okay. Are you able to? Hare Krishna.
Yeah, Prabhu, we can hear you.
Okay.
Krishna.
So Hare Krishna. So are there any comments or concerns? Anything to share? Anything that you want to add? Would like to hear from you, all of you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank
Hare
you for
Krishna.
beautifully summarizing, the second chapter. Um, one of the quotes that you just shared, it said satisfaction in the self alone. Can you explain that a little bit more? It was a part of a, um, I think if you go back 3, 4 slides, it was in that where you're explaining transcendental consciousness.
Yeah. Okay. This is the one. Let me.
It's no, it's clearly satisfaction in the self alone. It was right in the middle somewhere. When, like, I was talking about when your mind is controlled and you're satisfied in the self alone. I didn't quite understand what. Yeah, here. Find satisfaction in the self alone.
Okay. Yeah. So, yeah, of course, which the Supreme Personality Godhead said, O Partha, when a man gives up all varieties of desires for sense gratification, which arises from the mental compulsion, and when his mind, thus purified, finds satisfaction in the self alone. Yes, this is that the spiritual, we are coming to the spiritual nature. That means we are understanding and realizing that We are spiritual, we are spirit soul, we have eternal relationship with the Supreme Lord. We are not independent in this world, but we are spirit soul. That is our original permanent situation, permanent nature. And then we are completely satisfied with it. That's called the science of self-realization, satisfaction in the self alone. That means we can completely derive. Suppose we are all looking outside, right? In the 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, Krishna is addressing this to Uddhava, telling to Uddhava that, oh, Uddhava, and this is the fact, you can derive, you can see everything, you can find self within yourself, and you can see everything within yourself. You can, instead of people are, excuse me, looking outside for the happiness, people are looking outside for all this, and people are such an endeavor they put for that, they don't sleep, they don't eat properly, they are such a way that put their efforts to just get some flickering happiness. But if you look within inside and you understand that, that self alone itself, its nature is full of bliss. It's full of bliss. So just for an example, if we eat something, right, we fill our stomach, we get satisfaction, right? So as I mentioned before, the mind, okay, your mind is agitated, you go and listen some music, it for some time it's become peaceful, right? So then again it's become agitated for some other reason. Or once it's the digested from this food in your stomach, you're again hungry and you're kind of eager and you get angry and so many things it creates. Then you get you get peace, you get shanti for your mind, right? But when we put ourselves all this within the self and understanding that we are our spiritual nature, and if we realize that the spirit soul is part of that supreme, its nature is full of knowledge, eternal and full of bliss, then what happens, we derive such a bliss that's called ananda. So we can all satisfy the self alone. That's why people go to the forest and they meditate there for many years. They sit there in the same position. I know that many people, even the Radhanath Swami Maharaj journey home book, Maharaj mentioned that they don't need anything else, they are so happy. And if you look at the example of Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, Maharaj was so happy and went to the Russia. That time, Russia, it was banned. All this, this distribution of books or preaching and all. But Bhaktivedanta Maharaj was completely satisfied within himself that he understood that, he does not need any help for anything from outside. Bhaktivedanta Maharaj was going one train to another and, staying in that, within the train and even chanting within the toilet of the train and seeing that self. Because why? Because I realize that self, his nature is eternal, and the duty of that soul is actually to serve that supreme. This is called science of self-realization, or satisfying in the self alone. And then if you do that, then what happens? We are on the spiritual plane. We are transcendently situate. Self, transcendently situate. Spirit is complete, spiritual. I mean, that's spiritual. One who comes up to the spiritual plane is known as, that means he transcends all the lower state of senses, mind, intelligence, modes of this nature, goodness, passion, ignorance. He transcends all those, and then he completely purified and came to that his spiritual transcendental situation. That's called as satisfaction in the self alone.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Okay. Okay, wonderful. Anything else? Anybody else has anything to add? I would like to hear from devotees. I mean, what did you learn today? Hare Krishna. Nothing else?
Prabhuji, I had one more question if nobody else is asking. It's
Please.
like I know that for 13 days we observe, like after somebody dies, like we say, but I had personally thought that the migration like from one body to another takes place like right away. I don't know why, like I had that in my mind. So about how long does it take for
Good
a
question.
soul?
Yeah, good question, Maharaj. Yes. See, in the next chapter, we will see that Krishna is telling to Arjuna that the soul is actually come down to this earthly planet through the rain. Then from the rain, it's get into the grains, and from the when people eat the grains, it's get into the body of the you know people, and then it's actually going from one to another. So it's very clear that it's actually wandering, it's going around, it comes down, and all those things. Yes, Garuda Puran is very nicely mentioned about this, and it is mentioned this way. Like as I mentioned, 1 days and 2 to 3 days, and then 3 to 10 days, 3 to 9, 10 days, and it travels. Then what happened? This is the time which actually also the agent of the Amiraj, right? We know that he is the controller. He's the control of the death. So he has the agents. He come and pick this soul and travels. So it's a long journey. It's not that we just say that immediately a person gets the body to the another body. No, immediately it doesn't get. I mean, there is a difference between there. It's not that the same for every person. It's not the same for every person. Some gets actually according to his past life, and if he is dying, if he prematurely dying, right, and he has more karma to perform, prematurely dying, sometimes accidental death, sometimes people can kill themselves, people goes through various things, and they all can actually they can get the body, I mean, depends on what still remains to complete their karma, and then they get it in that what is quoted in that specific time. um, that's why it's a sin. Killing is a sin because of you are forcefully stopping one person's activity or his life. That's why it's very severe, heinous crime. So brahma hatya, it is known as brahma hatya. So in other words, a person is, he's finished his whatever the age or whatever the time he has allotted, and this time the Yamadudas, they come and take that person, and then he or look at that what he did good and what he did bad. Accordingly, he goes to the hellish planets, or if he's a good, and he may suffer in the hellish planets, and then he goes to the heavenly planets according to the his karma, all his enjoys there, and then he comes back into this material world and takes birth into the, depends on what kind of karma he did, and his desires his settled body, and depends on that he gets the body into the family of aristocrat. He is a devotee, he has not completed his sadhana, or completed, he is not purified enough his consciousness, he still has some disease, he takes birth accordingly. But for a devotee, yes, devotee depends on that the it's mentioned that into the Ajamala story of Srimad Bhagavatam, Ajamala, Yamadudas never come closer to the devotees of the Lord. And how do we Yamadudas understand that he is a devotee of the Lord? And when he has a Kandhimala, he has a tilak, and he has chanted the holy name in his life, and it's all there in his, of course, in the consciousness, is in the spiritual, in the spirit soul, as known as Smriti, it is there. And one who chanted the holy name, and he has enough spiritual credit, Emadu does never come closer to that person. And that's what is the instruction of Yamaraj to the Yamadudas. One who is a devotee, who has a tulasi, one who has chanted, he has tulasi beads on his neck. That's the reason actually devotees wear tulasi beads. And the lotus feet of the Lord on the forehead, that is known as the lotus feet. And the lotus feet, as soon as he say that, one Yamadudas see this person, and he says it's considered as a devotee. Even if one he wear the tulasi beads or put the tilak in all the places body, it's a temple for that soul, so it's completely purified. As soon as one touches, it's purified the body, so Yamadudas cannot touch those person. So that's why it's very, very important that one who should come to that plane of level of that devotee level, so that Yamadudas won't come and touch him. So those devotees, they pass to the another body according to the desires of it. And those devotees Lord is arranging, not the Yamadudas, but Vishnu Dudas are arranging, their transition from one body to another, and then they take birth accordingly. And we can also see that, many devotees who just take the birth in the past life, they all, I read a few of the articles that, some devotees, they take birth in the past life and they remember their past life as devotee and those things. So then there is also situations, those who are transferring from one body to another and those didn't get any kind of shraddha or rituals or any kind of purificatory processes. They go to the, the planets, and there is called Bhuvarloka. This is called for the ghost and the gobblers. There is a planet for them. And some go to the Aryama. Aryama is actually their, the predominant deity of all these souls. And there is a planet called Aryama. And then there is a moon planet. Some goes to the moon planet, some goes, so various places they all go, depends on, what in their consciousness. Andakale mame was smaran. What is in the smarana, what is in that smriti, and what is there in the consciousness, depends on that they all. But the devotees, it's guaranteed, as Krishna says that trayado mahado bhayan, and even if one take little steps in this process, there is no danger for them. Trayado Mahado Bhayan, they will relieve from this miserable and from the danger. What is that danger? That they definitely get a human birth, at least into the next life, and they passes, they continue from there. So this satisfy Mataji?
Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you so much. Thank you for explaining in such detail. Thank you.
Sure. Nice. Thank you so much. Anybody else? Anything to add? Devotees? They all there? Anything would like to add? Okay, I mean, it's getting also closer. Thank you so much. So we are just wanted to give some summary. Hope I conveyed that the summary message to all of you. Thank you so much for joining. If there is nothing else, then we can conclude today's session. Is that okay? Yeah. Okay. So let's pay our obeisance to all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord. Vancha kalpatarubhyasya
Vachakalpatarubhyasya
Prabha
kripa
sindhubhya eva cha
Sindhudevacha
patitanam
patitanam
pavanebhyo
pavanebhyo
Vaishnavebhyo
Vaishnavebhyo
namo
Namo
namaha.
Namah.
Vaishnav Vrinda ki
Vaishnavrinda ki
jai.
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 Grandiraj Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai.
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 Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
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 Gaurav Premanande Hari Hari
Hari
Bol.
Hari
Hari Hari
Bol.
Bol.
Hare
Thank you
Krishna.
so much, Prabhuji. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.
Thank you, Simhesvara
Thank
Prabhu.
you, Prabhuji.
Hare
Thank you.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.